Generosity. That was my first mistake. I leave these people a little bit extra and they hire these men to make trouble. It shows you, sooner or later, you must answer for every good deed.
Hi everyone, I'm Sapphire Underwood and I chose to express the changes in Western genres. It all started pretty early during the rise of film itself. It was not as prominent with the audience. The very first film that was done was by Edwin S. Porter with his short, The Great Train Robbery in 1903. As film continued to move through the years, Westerns were not the money maker until 1920s. After launching a new look into the Westerns, other studios jumped on the train and started making their own silent films. Most of Universal's films during that time were Westerns, and according to an article in the New York Times Magazine written by Tom Schartz, expressed that Universal distribution chain was in rural and small town markets. Fox had theater chains in the Rockies, leading up to John Ford's The Iron Horse, although his career started in Universal. Then the Depression hit the country. During this time in history, the Great Depression affected everyone. Although studios could not make big-budget films, they still sufficed with B movies. During this time, most of the studios were transitioning to the talkies, and being that it was so costly, Westerns were nearly abandoned until the late 1930s, leading into the 1940s. B-movies flourished the 1940s with the rise of drive-in theaters. Families would populate the drive-ins before the theaters, and studios were taking advantage of that.
Women have had a weakness for me. Well, don't tip your hat. Don't even talk to them. Say, that's an idea. It's talk that always gets you into trouble with a woman.
Also, during this time, John Wayne became a huge star after his performance in The Desert Trail. The 1940s was a time for Westerns to flourish in history. Studios were cranking out the idea of cowboys, outlaws, the Wild West across the country. Westerns were revamped to fit into the ideals of Hollywood. The studios were trying their best to come back financially after the effects of the war. Some contained more sex, while others had a much darker agenda. Many subgenres of the Westerns became more prominent, like sex Westerns. Others were noir Westerns, which had dark psychological backgrounds, giving a new rise to television, and for big studios like Paramount, United Artists, and Warner Brothers releasing entertainment for audiences across the country. As Westerns continued through the years, not only were American directors making their mark, but also those who were of non-American descent. One prominent name was Sergio Leone and his spaghetti westerns that starred Clint Eastwood. Each film had made a mark on the anti-hero and played into the expectations that were not set by Americans. These films gave another meaning to Westerns. After starring in Leone's films, Eastwood took on directing and producing his own, and using what he learned from Leone, bringing that to American cinema.
Who are you?
Another who took foreign influences had brought them back to America was John Sturges in his remake of Seven Samurais, The Magnificent Seven. As time continues to bring us to more recent films, westerns have been revamped to fit more into society. During the 1970s on to the 1990s, many filmmakers have made their own touch on westerns, giving it a completely different look from just the cowboy in the West dealing with livestock and fighting Indians. Coming into the 80s, westerns were seriously declining from the cinema. Audiences did not seem to want to see the repetitive theme of trailblazers in the Old West. Few westerns made a stand like Mel Brooks' comedic spoof, Blazing Saddles.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Some films, like Back to the Future, made an homage to the rapidly declining genre. Into present-day filmmaking, there have been a variety of homage to the classic Western films. Quentin Tarantino is one filmmaker that gave it a new meaning with his film Django Unchained. This is a film that gave the audience something different with a lot of violence, but still kept the gunslinger persona. Many films to this day have pulled off making a great Western, while others have flopped. One Western flop was the remake of The Magnificent Seven, trying to fit the Old West in with the ideals of today. Western films may be a big thing of the past, but they are not forgotten and are seen in films today, even if it is small. This is a genre that gives the audience hope of thriving for greatness and being fearless. Westerns will one day make a comeback, but until then, it demonstrates a pastime that may have been fictional, but in the eyes of the world, we are all cowboys and cowgirls on the inside and can make a difference.